Hi, everyone. This is Dawn Richard, also known as The Awakening with Dawn, and this is the Wake Up to Real Love podcast, where we share stories of struggles and triumphs in love, sex, and relationships, along with expert advice to create more conscious connections. I'm super honored and excited today to have my new friend and colleague, Patty Mohler. Welcome, Patty.
Hi, Dawn. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for your patience. We had some technical issues for a little while, but better late than never.
We're making it through, so it's all good.
We're making it through. So Patty is a licensed mental health counselor in Jacksonville, Florida, and also the author of the #1 best-selling book called Renew and Restore: How to Communicate, Connect, and Celebrate Your Best Self. She does a lot of amazing work with grief, trauma, addiction, depression, and anxiety. And but the thing that I think is so wonderful is that her work is driven by an unwavering belief that everyone is capable of designing and creating the life they were meant to live, regardless of the challenges around them.
Yeah.
Amen.
Hey, yeah, exactly.
So welcome.
Empower, motivate.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're here because you have a great perspective. And I mean, I don't really know you very well, but just from what I've seen, you have this very, beautiful, giving heart, this lovely spirit, this amazing energy, and you practice what you preach.
Thanks. I think I'll come back every night if I get introduced that way, Dawn. That was awesome. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
Yeah. So so my little icebreaker question is, because you live in Florida, you love the beach, and on your Facebook page, you said the 6 best doctors in the world are sunlight, rest, exercise, diet, self-confidence, and friends. And it was just like that and the beach is like a whole new world, like a beautiful life. So what's it like?
You know what? I think I've lived here now. I was talking to somebody this week, and I find it so scary whenever we put numbers on things. But we were talking about a hospital that opened, and I was like, "Oh, I've lived here before that." And she's like, "Well, that's been like 35 years." And I went, "Oh,
you're like,
really?
What?
Like, really? Okay." So when I first moved here, it was like at the beach, like take the chair, be down there all the time, and then you get not so much. And then life happens and you get busy, and then you have kids and you're not down there, and then you have kids that are older, and then you're back down there again. So I think it's just that place I tend to go. I love to walk. I'm not a sitter anymore. I get too fidgety. I have too much to do, or my brain tells me I have too much to do. So that's maybe not my favorite place to just kind of go chill in a chair. It is my favorite place to go take a long walk, hang out with friends. And I can do it if friends are there, but just to sit and I can't do that. But it has less to do with quieting my mind, because I do believe I can do that. And I do believe in downtime. It's more that I'm very aware of the sun, and I just have had some skin cancer, and that's just not the thing for me. So that is led by just sitting in it and baking is just not me anymore, but I still love it down there. Now, if you want to know where my soul gets nurtured, it's in the
river.
Mountains. Yeah, on a river in the mountains.
Yeah. Where do you like to go?
I really am a West Coast baby. I was born and raised in Reno, Nevada. So I literally had the Truckee River running through it. But anywhere that has mountains, pretty much. And if there's water, I still am drawn to the water. That I use the analogy of the river that runs throughout the entire book. I think life throws at us whirlpools and rapids, but it also has calm, beautiful, wonderful. And it was interesting that I used that throughout the book. And recently I was looking at my website, which, we don't always go look back at our website.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, the whole thing's about the river. And I was like, man, that just tells you that it's just one of those things that I'm just drawn to.
Yeah. It's, it's so strange, because I have been thinking a lot about, there's a lot of talk about masculine and feminine in the world.
Yeah.
And I have this analogy that the woman is more like the water, that's sort of ebbing and flowing, and it
Cool.
could be calm or could be chaotic in the rapids. But that the masculine is the river banks
Okay.
that's the safe container.
Yeah. I call those boundaries in my book.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's
So
interesting. Well, okay, so I got one for you, Dawn,
okay.
because I talk about this in the book. What are the boulders?
The boulders are
Are they masculine or feminine for you?
they could be either, really. They could be because I think some people think, well, anger is just masculine, but I feel like Mother Nature gets angry.
Yeah,
So
I never thought about it. I don't think that's interesting. I've never heard anger be talked as having a feminine or masculine. So that's an interesting
well,
concept.
like the goddess Pele, that was the
Yeah,
volcano in
yeah,
Hawaii, she erupted,
yeah,
and then she created these beautiful, lush tropics
right.
around. So I don't know. It's like the wrath of mama. Like almost like when you're a mom, don't mess
Right,
with my child.
right, right,
That's
right.
feminine, strength and power and anger,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So what do you say the boulders are?
I don't think I put that they were masculine or feminine, but they certainly are that thing that, that water washes around it all the time and erodes it, right? Because that's
Uh-huh.
how we've gotten the canyons and that's how we've gotten. So, that can be just us really stuck in our ways.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people feel like they're a boulder, and sometimes life goes around people. I always think water's interesting though, because water always retains its same shape even when it's divided and it comes back together.
Mm-hmm.
So when I always think of hitting a boulder and hitting a place in your life, yeah, it kind of spatters around and goes, but getting to the other side, it comes together again as water.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I mean, that's
Yeah,
beautiful. So that
yeah.
you can, so that, well, and this is the thing too. It's like no matter what boulder is in your way, you have the ability to somehow get over it or around it.
Yeah, I have a great story about that. It's funny because I took my son camping. I took him whitewater rafting in what I call real rapids out west, not the ones up north. Sorry, everybody up north, but yeah, but out on the big water. And you're taught as you go out that if you're going to hit a boulder, you hit it nose on, and then you'll just go around it.
Mm.
If you hit it sideways,
You
you're gonna,
flip.
yeah, you're gonna be tossed out of the boat. And
Uh-huh.
so I came upon, everybody was up front. I was back by myself in a kayak, and there is a boulder about the size of this room. I mean, massive. And so I could see it coming. And so I just thought, oh, here I go. I'll be fine. I'm just going to hit it this way. Well, get caught in the rapids, get caught in the undertow, and I got turned sideways. And man, I smacked into that massive thing, turned upside down. There were oars one way, there was life preservers another way, there was me another way, and I just came up laughing. And there was a man behind me trying to help and rescue, and he was like, "Are you okay?" And I just had one question: did he see that? Meaning my son. I just did not want my son to know that I'm the one who smacked into this boulder. And by the time we got to lunch and I got back in, he went and got one oar, I got the other, I got the kayak, I got back in. By the time we got to lunch, he was like, your secret's safe with me. And I was like, and I was totally dry by the time I got to the lunch place, but then I confessed. But and that always just reminds me, though, that's part of my lesson. I have been smacked down.
Mm-hmm.
I have been turned upside down. And I had to learn through all of my smackdowns, I have to count on somebody. If he hadn't gone and gotten that oar for me, if I hadn't said, help, can you go get that one? And Dawn, that was one of those lessons that I had to learn really pretty in a hard way. But that's also how I believe life. It'll toss you, it'll push you around, but this strong, independent woman that I want to protect has to go time out. I need help. I need friends. I need therapists. I need people. And
I
that
need
was a
a
great lesson for me.
community. Yeah,
Yeah.
I need a
And that's
community.
my analogy. Sometimes we get tossed upside down.
Hmm. I thought you were going to say, and during these lessons, when you hit these boulders, instead of getting all upset, you just laugh and go, "Oh, okay. What am I supposed to learn from this?"
Yeah, well, and I think that's a positive point too, but I think there's some big things that we can't laugh through.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think laughter is number one. I think we have to sit back and if we don't have that, we're really in trouble. You and I had a brief conversation. I think that good things and laughter can coexist, and I
Yeah.
think we just have to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, okay, so if we're talking about boundaries
Hmm.
and boulders, you've had your fair share of them in your life.
Yeah.
So, how have you overcome your own boulders?
Again, I think it's learning how to reach out and learning how to sit back. I think sometimes we have to just get quiet. I think we can't be so afraid of the change, and change isn't always what we want it to be.
Hmm.
If we've lost a loved one, if there's a divorce, if there's a death, but there is, how are we going to get through that? How do we honor somebody? If somebody's died, mine's always been, how do we honor that person?
Hmm.
And honoring that person doesn't mean I put up a big shrine or that I have a special day or that I have a foundation. Honoring somebody can be that I'm willing to allow myself to have laughter again
Hmm.
at the same time that I'm grieving you. It can be that, a lot of people select something. If it's a butterfly or a certain kind of bird that reminds them, that's honoring that person.
Hmm.
So I don't think it's quick. I think we have to give ourselves space and time. I think a lot of people look at me and go, oh gosh, how'd you get through that? Or how'd you get through that? Look at the span of time. It's not like it happened last week. So when people
Hmm.
say, oh, wow, you talk about that so easily or so carefully, and I've had a long time. I've had a lot of healing. But I also believe, Dawn, that if you haven't done all your work, it's a scab. And every time you bump it, it's going to get ripped off. It's going to start bleeding. It's going to feel like salt's being poured back on.
Hmm.
And yet, if we do the work, if we heal it, there is a scar. It is never the same,
Right. It never goes away. The scar never goes away.
but you might be better.
Yeah.
You might be stronger.
Can we talk about your dad?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because this was the tragedy, right?
Right.
This was.
So when I was about 21 years old,
Hmm.
was I 21? Yeah, 22 years old, I had just come back from Colorado State and was going to start my life. And not knowing quite where I felt or what I was doing, I went to work for my dad, who was an OBGYN.
Hmm.
And so I went to work for his office, and I could tell he was really off, and started spending evenings with him. I was living out on my own, but I was seeing him in the office. His next door office mate, I would go through because we were all good friends. I'd known him as a child growing up. And I said, I think my dad's in a terrible place. Oh, your dad's fine. Everything's going to be, he's just worried about X, X, and S. And I was like, okay, but I think it's deeper than that.
Mm.
And then I would see him at night, and I would say, yeah, it's really, there is something really terrible going on. And he was the life of the party,
Mm.
just absolutely the life of the party. So he was a tremendous actor, as I talk about in my book. He had everybody really fooled. And I remember the night that, I think the night that I saw him, my fiance at the time came home, and they had their own discussion out on the golf course, and he knew I was exhausted, and he said, we just need to go to dinner. Can we go to dinner? And I said yes. And we chose to go like a half an hour outside of Reno, just because we wanted an extra time, and we really hadn't seen each other very much. So we drove, we had dinner, we come back, and we had gone to take the car back that we had used, and we were up at his mom's house. And I just said, I know what happened. You have to get me to his house. And we went, and I was actually the person who found my father. So
Oh,
that
wow.
was 3 times more tragic. So yeah, it was just a very upsetting event, obviously. The story continued that it just got worse. So called the police, had the ambulance, all that. So they were taking him to the hospital, and I didn't even dawn on me that my brother would be the person in the emergency that was going to need to revive my father.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So when we walked
Wow.
into
Wow.
the room that day, my brother looked at me and I looked at him, and he's just like, "Why are you?" And there's our dad, and it was just like, and there wasn't another doc in the hospital at the time, so it was
Wow.
totally up to him until they could get some help. So the whole night just really spiraled out, and then unfortunately, and I do say that, and I don't mean this in a crass way, but he survived. He lived as a vegetable for the next 3 years,
Oh,
so in a vegetative state. So we
wow.
went through a lot of different things to try to figure out, do you take him off life support? What's that mean? And then add in there that I was getting married in 3 months.
Mm,
So then that became the huge decision that early on, right? And I'm
right.
22 years old. Do we get married? Do we not get married? All those decisions that came with, well, he's really alive, but he's in vegetable. Does his name go on the marriage invitations? Well, yes, but how's it looked at? So that was just a chaotic time, just a
Right.
chaotic time.
Right.
But I have to say, there were some interesting, fun moments that have come out of that, as tragic as it was. And it was tragic. Again, I've had a long time to deal with it and have had to do my work, because I obviously felt tremendously guilty that any other time I would have been there. I hadn't left his side.
Mm-hmm.
And then that night, that's the one night I hadn't gone over.
Mm-hmm.
We did have our wedding. It was absolutely beautiful. And we had gone to the mountains on our honeymoon, and we were out on a golf course, and it was freezing cold. And my husband had big down parka on and reached in the pockets and pulled something out. And it was my father's lighter, his silver lighter.
Wow.
And I just looked at my husband and we both started crying, because he was best friends with
Oh,
my dad. And we were like, he's here.
he's here.
And we don't know how the lighter got there. We're not sure if he had borrowed it from my dad. We had no idea, but we knew he was there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, and that was my gift. That was a gift and that's what I'm talking about. That was a gift to me, that I got you, and I'm still here, and it's going to be okay.
So when you're talking about you have to do the work when you're grieving, what is the work?
It's different for everybody. Some people, I recently had somebody that had a child die by suicide, and they were in on the second day after it happened. And they were like, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through it together, and we're going to get through it. That wasn't my road. My road is that I had to take the pity party road, and I had to just, I just got married, so I became a wife, did my daily rituals. I'd go see him on a daily basis. And then that got difficult. I had to deal with the guilt and the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting dealing with all of your friends, Dawn, because nobody knows what to say. So people are avoiding you in the supermarket. They don't know what to say. And so that also helped me be able to say Dawn, I heard what happened. That is so tragic. I don't have to say any more than that.
Yeah.
But the avoidance was something that was more, almost as devastating as what had happened. It was like, where did everybody go?
It's like
And
the
so
white elephant in the room that everybody feels uncomfortable, which is, I feel like, I haven't read your book. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, just hasn't gotten there. Another technology glitch.
But I feel like, this is an issue that so many people struggle with. They don't know how to express their own emotions.
Right.
They don't know how to recognize them, first of all, because a lot of times we repress them or suppress them or oppress them. And I think these struggles that people deal with are a result of not being able to fully express themselves.
And I'm hoping that as I talk freely about my story and tell my story, and it's not a huge part of the book, actually, because the book focuses on so many other things as well, but I think we need to talk about the stigma. It needs to go away. We talk about health and wellness checks all the time. Nobody thinks twice about it. Did you go for your wellness check?
Right.
But we haven't said, is it okay to have a mental wellness check?
Yeah.
And so we need to erase the stigma. It's not a horrible word. I think for a long time in my early working with this whole issue for me was worried about what everybody else thought. Like I felt like kind of the leper, like, oh, there's that girl whose dad did that, you know? And so
Yeah.
it back then had so much stigma that we wouldn't talk about it. People didn't know how to talk about it. We were afraid to say the word suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I certainly had my own set of stuff. Again, I have 3 brothers. I would tell you they have 3 very different stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also the one who found them. I have a very different story than theirs. My brother, who is in the emergency room, has a very different story than my story.
Right.
So I think we have to talk about it. I tell people, find people that'll listen to you, let you cry the rivers of tears,
Mm-hmm.
allow you to be angry. That
Mm-hmm.
people had to allow me to feel guilty.
Right.
People had to allow me to beat myself up that why I wasn't there. And then I think just time for me. I didn't seek out a lot of therapy. Again, that was not the thing you did to get over anything back in those days. It was too busy hiding it. A lot of reading for me, a lot of good friends, a lot of talking about it. And I tell people we have to tell our stories until they no longer have air.
Yeah. Yeah. Until they lose that charge, right?
Yes. Yeah. Whether that's a divorce, whether that's a death of somebody, we should always have that freedom to be able to tell our story and tell our story and tell our story.
Yeah.
That's how we heal.
Yeah.
Every time, Dawn, that we tell a story, we release a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We release a little bit more of the pain. So when people say to me, how can you talk about it like so easily? I've had a long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of my story. It's my scar.
Right.
I am healed. It doesn't mean that I can't feel sad or get upset about it at certain times,
Right.
but it's not what defines me as a woman, as a wife, as a mother, as a sister. It just doesn't define me.
It's just a part of who you are.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, even when you said get over it, you don't ever get over it.
over it. No, you deal with
You
it. It
you
becomes
get through
part
it.
of you.
You
Yeah,
get through it, right? And 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 that whole part of I can be feeling joy and I
yeah,
still am triggered and feel some sadness. Or I can be in my sadness and still celebrate something else in my life. I can do them simultaneously.
yeah.
I don't have to live in one space or the other. It's like
And that's so hard.
I can be bawling my eyes out and 2 minutes later, then something makes me laugh.
Absolutely. And yet, that's the hardest thing I think for people to come to terms with. You know, if you're dealing with a really tough subject, a divorce, a death of a child, an overdose, a suicide, people feel so guilty about moving forward and having joy. And part of my work as a therapist is to help people understand, just like you said, part of the heart can be so sad and torn apart, and we can still laugh and have joy. I still enjoyed every minute of my wedding. You
Mm,
know, and yes, there were moments where I'm like, dang it, why weren't you
he was
here?
here. Yeah.
And yet
Yeah.
he really was. He
Yeah.
was with his friends. He was in a lot of different ways. So it's just learning how to get through that. And I think I will always give my mom credit, Dawn. My mom gave me such a very, very strong foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I lost my way. And a lot of times, sometimes I did a lot of self-blame. But she had done such a great job in the foundation that if I wandered away, I could always find my way back towards that center of going, now, wait a minute, who am I really?
Mm-hmm.
I am her daughter. She taught me so much. So that to me was, but we got to realize too, not everybody has that foundation.
Mm-hmm. Do you think your brothers got that same foundation?
2 different moms. So I have a
Okay.
biological brother and 2 half brothers.
Uh-huh.
But interestingly enough, yes, very much. I would have said it's interesting. Both our mothers share the same birthday, which I've always found intriguing.
Whoa.
Yeah, I always thought that was interesting. But and I knew her extremely well. She was a beautiful, beautiful woman as well. So I think both boys, or all those two boys, and my biological brother, I think we all had the same foundation. Phenomenal people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So what made you go become a counselor?
Oh, that's a great. That's a good story. I've had quite the experience. My life, my career has been all over the place. I started out as an English teacher in high school, and taught tennis. I played professional tennis for a number of years,
Oh my
and taught
gosh.
tennis for a number of years. And then I owned a health and fitness center. So
Wow.
I owned a studio and taught classes. So mind, body, and spirit was pretty prevalent with me.
Uh-huh.
And I remember my son was graduating from high school. I had lived in Australia for a number of years, started to paint ceramics, and had a pretty big ceramics business here in Jacksonville, and did the
Wow.
art shows up and down the coast.
You're
And
like a Renaissance woman, Patty.
yeah, it's like that's why I say the career's kind of everywhere, but which has all led me to here. And so we were just sitting here. It was the economy crashed. And so why are you going to spend $75 for a hand painted bowl from me when you can go to Pier 1 and spend $5, right? So all of a sudden I'm watching this business. I'm in the middle of a divorce,
Mm.
and I'm thinking, yikes, now what? And so I really thought about it and thought, what the heck am I going to do? And I said I'd go back to school, and then the ticker tape. You are too old. You can't do this. You
Mm.
can't pay for it. You don't have the time. There's no way you can do this. And I thought, I sat right in this living room and I said, all excuses. Every one of those is an excuse. What would you do? And I literally sat 5 feet. I was standing there and I thought, I'd put it all together and I'd be a therapist. And I
Wow.
walked over to this laptop, looked it up, and 5 minutes was UNF. And they had a K-CREP accredited school, and I applied that minute.
Wow.
And so mine's truly, I believe in mind, body, and spirit. I use a lot of artwork in my sessions.
Creativity is so important.
Yes, mindfulness. Talking about fitness is a huge piece of that. If people come in and they're depressed, I do gratitude journals. Everybody has to do a gratitude. Has to. They don't have to do anything. But I
They can
encourage
choose
them.
to. They can
Yeah,
choose to.
I suggest strongly.
I strongly invite you.
Yes. And that is the thing I think that gets me through the worst of times is gratitude.
Mm.
And I think
How is it helpful? How does it change your perspective? What is it?
God.
Why is it important?
Because we stop focusing out there on everything that's terrible. And it makes us get mindful about what is right here in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
After I'd gone through the divorce, I'm going through this catharsis of now what in my life. I found myself in a space where I was barely moving. My son was going back and forth. We had joint custody, and he was coming back and forth from the homes. So I would rally for him. And then I'd fall apart and not get out of bed.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, a friend said, just do me a favor, do 30 days, 10 things a day for 30 days. And I thought, okay, I got nothing. So,
I know. I was
okay.
going to say, if you're feeling terrible, it's like, can I think of anything good?
I brought the book out. We did a podcast on gratitude the other day, and I brought them out. And the very first 3 days, say open eyes 10 times. That's all I wrote. Open eyes, open eyes. And I showed it.
Wow.
And second page, third page, fourth page says, put feet on floor.
Wow.
And that's all it says. And then it's a cup of coffee. And then I went outside today. And then my son came home. And so then you just see this.
Like progression.
This river that I'm drawn through and that I'm being pulled through. And I start literally coming out of it. And then afterwards, I thought, was it really the gratitude? And I thought, I don't know what else it was, because I was in such a dark place, I wouldn't go to therapy. That's always interesting, right? And that's interesting for me to have to deal with as a therapist. You're too struggling too much to be able to get to anybody.
Right.
And I really started studying gratitude, and it's those big things, it's my family, my friends. My son started being back on there. I think he showed up about the 5th day. He so he was always there. And then I've done a lot of studying, Dawn, about gratitude. And one of my friends who I met at a gratitude seminar, we would call, because part of gratitude is to tell people what your gratitudes are, to share them with somebody. Yeah, that's a great one. It helps to put it out in the universe.
Huh, okay.
So we were going back and forth, and he was reading his, and he did his list. I said, what'd you just say? And he said, I said, you have your thumbs on your gratitude list. And he said, Patty, have you ever stopped to think what your thumbs do for you throughout the day? And I was like, wow, there's a man that took it from family and my health to I got thumbs.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
And then in that same session, the instructor talked about I write at night. That's how I personally do it. And I keep my little journals by my bed. And then I thought, well, he instructed us to think about what you want to put on your gratitude when you get to your little notebooks or wherever you put them.
Mm-hmm.
That changed my practice again. And that was like 5 or 6 years in, because now I'll go, it was so fun. And I have so much gratitude for being on a podcast with Dawn. Well, when I go to bed, I'm writing that down. But I start in the morning and I can remember. Because see, for a depressed person, they get to the end of the day like I do and go, what do I got? I have nothing. Now you talk about depressing.
Yeah.
It's depressing when you can't think of what you have gratitude for.
Yeah.
So if you start thinking about it during the day and then writing it down, you'll remember, or at least I do. When I help my clients, I actually have them carry the little notebook. They all get a notebook from me, and they carry the notebook. But I learned the best thing ever about 1.5 years ago.
What's that?
So when we write in our journals, we actually take pen to paper, crayon to paper, whatever you're using. It's actually the vibration of the pen to the paper that helps calm down your parasympathetic nervous system. And that's what helps calm us down.
Really?
So think about this as a kid.
I've never heard of that.
I learned it like a year, like I said, 1.5 years ago. It was phenomenal. When we take kids out to dinner, what do most parents do, except for a little bit more modern, right? We give them crayons and pencils.
Yeah.
Not only is it fun for them to do, the vibration is helping them calm down, which is opposite of handing your child a computer, which ignites their brain and absolutely brings up the sympathetic nervous system.
Right.
So if we want to calm people down, we have them journal. We have them write. We have them write letters.
Color. Is that why they have those like adult coloring books?
Coloring
like those mandalas and
yeah. Yeah.
Do you use those in your therapy?
I do. I do vision boards as well. Sitting with women, especially, my age, they come in, they've raised their kids, they're now retiring. They come in and say, I'm lost. I don't have a clue. And that's because they've given and given and given.
Right.
And haven't stayed in tune to who they are. So I will send them out and say, go do a vision board. And just freewheel it. And so I don't tell them what they're going to do with that vision board, but when they come back in, that's the discovery process. Because I'll say, tell me about the board. Oh, it was good. It was fun. And I'll say, hold it up.
What'd you find?
And they'll start talking. And they can hear the story of why they chose that particular picture. why they chose a water scene and why water's in there 10 times. Why is a couple in there 10 times? Why is there a child only half and off to the side? Like, they don't process, and I don't ask them to process on their own. That's what I do in the office. But vision boards are awesome.
What a beautiful, what a beautiful self-discovery.
It is. It's really fun.
I think that's.
There you go, Dawn.
I actually think that's what people are missing. You know,
What's
like
that?
when they feel like, I don't know where to go, I don't know who I am. It's like they've stopped exploring themselves. They've stopped giving themselves permission to do things that bring them joy.
But that's actually what the title of my book was going to be. It is now, Renew and Restore: How to Communicate, Connect, and Celebrate Your Best Self. It was about giving permission. Because we, especially women, don't give our permission. We are so busy doing anything else for everybody. We don't stop and think exactly what you said. Where's my tank getting full?
Right. What do
and
I
for
want?
a lot
What do I
well
want?
and for a lot of years, right, I can honestly say my joy was raising my son. That was great joy. But not to get lost in that you have no idea. And a lot of that falls into codependency too, when you do everything for everybody else, but you fail to look at yourself. But yeah, a lot of us have lost that, what brings us joy. People come into my office and say, and I'll say to them, so what brings you in today? Well, I want happiness. Define happiness. And they'll go, huh? I go, well, how are we going to find it if you don't even know what that is? And that's the joy of the mandalas. That's the joy of taking photographs. That's the joy of just going on a bike ride and being with yourself. We've lost the ability to be calm, to daydream. Daydreaming is where we solve our problems. Because how do you daydream if it's busy 18 hours out of the day?
Do you ever listen to Abraham Hicks?
Yes.
Okay. So she says, when people ask you what you're doing, you say, I'm daydreaming.
Right.
And people go, what?
What? Why? And then you'll get this one. Why would you do that?
Right. Because I'm tired of being so busy.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of feeling disconnected.
Right.
And I don't, it's just keeping me in this place where I don't feel joy. This doesn't light me up. I'm just like in this autopilot. When you were talking about, having joy raising your kid, it reminded me of your grief doesn't define you.
No.
You're raising your kid doesn't define you.
No.
It's a part of your story,
yeah.
but it's not who you are. It's not your identity.
No.
So how do we rediscover our identity? Because I think this is all tied to your mind, body, soul.
So yes.
Because I have this same perspective.
Yeah, and I am so incredibly sad. I have spent the last 2 years putting together a retreat that was going to happen in October, and COVID has knocked it out. Yeah. And it was definitely exactly what we're talking about. It was going to be 4 days of how women come back and discover. We have to have conversations. We have to sit with really good girlfriends and be able to have the tough conversations. We need to be able to put, it's not even in my vicinity, the phone down. It's learning how to reconnect first with ourselves before we can connect with others. Anybody who knows me will tell you I have a love-hate relationship with technology. Shoot, you and I have a love-hate tech. We tried to connect all week, and this thing was supposed to be an hour ago, and we, so technology was not our friend, but right now it's our best friend because this is uniting us. So I have this love-hate relationship. But until people really put down the phone and using thumbs to connect, great experience this last week. And it was absolutely, this person has read my book, knows how I feel about it, knows we need to pick up the phone. And I hadn't heard from this person in January, and, think of everything that's happened, right?
Right.
Yeah, everything that's happened. We all know that the world's been on shutdown. And I was extremely hurt. This person hadn't called, and they have a full family, full house, all that kind of stuff. I live alone. Not a single phone call. And I must admit, and I had reached out to them several times and never got a call back.
Mm-hmm.
And so my feelings were hurt. So when this person called, it was a little icy. And they said, well, I can tell things aren't good. And I said, well, I'm a little surprised that I haven't received a phone call. Mm-hmm. And we talked about it. And they said, I feel really connected to you. Can you help me understand how you feel very connected to me? We haven't talked one word since January, and I've reached out several times. Uh-huh. And they said, but I've seen you on Facebook and I've seen your Instagram, like you're lighting it up. You've got things going, you're doing stuff, you've got the retreat. And I said, you feel connected to me because of my social media? And I said, you're looking at professional photos that are put out, and you're looking at posts that I probably scheduled months ago, and you think you're connected to me? So the only way you would have known right now that I'm upset or that I feel I've been dismissed is you heard my voice. Mm. Because if you had sent another text saying, hi, how are you? You would have gotten back again, fine.
Right.
And this has been, Dawn, such a tough time for everybody, but it's been extremely tough for therapists. We're inundated with people. Mm-hmm. We have we're equally concerned.
Right.
So I think we just have to, this COVID stuff, if anybody's listening out there, if you have anybody that's single, lives by themselves, a nurse, don't text them, pick up the phone. They need to hear a human voice. They need to have connection. That's what's going to ground us. That's what's going to get us out of this, is reconnecting. Human beings are not meant to be in their homes 24/7. They are not meant to not hug people.
That's what, oh my gosh, I miss
right?
that so much. Because, my kids are older teenagers and they're like,
right,
Mom, we don't want to hug you, we hug our friends.
Yeah.
I'm like, I miss my hugs.
Yeah, I had lunch with friends today and we all looked and did this and we were like, yes. And we were big bear hugs. It was just awesome. And it was like, oh, that feels so good. But you can get touch in another way as well. We put on lotion. If you're single, you can put on lotion, bubble baths.
I do. It's still not the same.
No, massages help because that's human touch.
Yeah.
So we can still get it. It's not the same. A hug is a hug.
Yeah, a hug is, and my family is big on hugs. So I have another job and I hug a lot of people at the other job. And they're like, oh my God, you give the best hugs. And I was like, I know, because I like them. So I like to give them.
Yes. Yeah.
But that whole sense of reconnection, because we're so disconnected in our separate spaces. And I mean,
I think we as women,
I'm thankful that we have this, like when we were on when I met you last week on this call, it was like, oh, this is so great. And, this new opportunity to meet new people and connect.
Right. Absolutely. And that's, what that platform Convene Communities is about connecting. And I just think that we as women, especially, and that's why, hopefully one day I'll get back, but retreats are so important to be able to go away, take time out. Mm-hmm. When I was feeling pretty burnt out several years ago, I decided as a single woman, how am I going to travel? But I wanted to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I'll go do a yoga retreat. Oh, my friends are like, lovely. Do you do yoga that much? And I was like, no, but they have to be good people, right? Like they can't be terrible people. And so I went on a yoga retreat down to Mexico. I took 4 books. Yes.
Oh, my girlfriend has gone twice.
Oh, let's go. Come with me.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah. So I went and when I checked into the hotel, I handed him my iPad and my cell phone and said, put these in the safe and do not give them back to me unless the world is blowing up.
Wow.
I had given my son and a neighbor the telephone number of Maya Tulum and said, you can call if the world's blowing up. I had 4 books with me. I didn't read one.
Wow.
I would sit, I went out of obligation. I thought, okay, well, I should go to yoga, right? Since that's why I was here. Didn't know any of these people. So I showed up at the yoga
Did you know
class.
any of the poses?
No, not really. But I didn't care. I was only going to go to one and then be on my own, right?
Uh-huh.
So I went to the first one and I loved it. And I ended up doing like 4 hours a day. I mean, I became
Oh
obsessed while I was on this.
gosh, wow.
I did every spa treatment. These people, I call them my friends. So a couple of them and I have become best friends. It's who I had lunch with today. And they were
Wow.
leading the retreat. But they would laugh the night before and go, so Patty, what are you doing? I said, oh, tomorrow's the seaweed mud bath. And they're like, oh my God. And I said, I had planned on this trip for a year. I'm not missing out on anything. I literally did not engage unless I had to. At Maya Tulum, you don't put shoes on. It's sandy and little water foot baths outside your room. So
nice.
I just didn't do anything. And I don't think my soul has ever been that regenerated of just to sit on the beach. My friends would come up and chat for a few minutes and then they would go off. If I wanted to sit with people at dinner, I sat with people at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
There was a great one night. There were 9 of us at the table, and they got in this huge discussion about addiction.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I'm an addictionologist. That's 80% of my practice.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go. And I went, just going to sit back and listen. I said not one word.
Interesting. And of course, they had no idea, right?
No, because I didn't tell anybody I was a therapist. I didn't want anyone to, think that I was therapizing.
Working. Yeah.
And so the next morning at breakfast, one of the guys came up and he said, "Oh, you were just like so quiet." And I said, "True confession. It's exactly what I do and what I don't want to talk about." He's like, "Oh, you should have said something." I said, "No, it was so interesting to hear everybody else's points of view.
Yeah.
I didn't need to add a single thing." It was fascinating to me. And we all just laughed, and then the word was out. And nobody said anything. They just left me alone, but it was funny. But that was the best. Didn't even have time to read a book. That's how checked out I was. So just did spa.
So shouldn't we do that every, often? Every often?
I think, yeah, I really do. I think women should even I think we can even do it. If we just took a magazine and went and sat out back, I think even finding 30 minutes, but most women I talk to and try to help say, I could never do that for 30 minutes. We have to learn how to find that space to recharge our batteries. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, we come back into my office and say, who am I? I have no motivation. I don't know how to get going, because we didn't fill the well back up, because we give and give and give. Mm-hmm. As women. That's our nature. We tend to be caretakers.
Well, it's our nature, but we are built to also, this is the part of the masculine and the feminine, right? That we talked a little bit about, but the women are built to receive. And anatomically, they're built to receive.
Oh, correct.
Right?
Correct.
And the man is built to give.
Correct.
And we are supposed to be. And we don't do that.
And we don't.
It's like we're constantly fighting against our natures.
Right.
If you think about old tribal, yes. Women just sat around and probably they kept busy doing stuff, but they were just sort of being. It wasn't like they were busy doing. They were just being and communing.
Maya Tulum taught me how to be a human being and not a human doing.
Yeah.
And I talk about it in the book. I talk about how there used to be sewing circles. Mm-hmm. And you think about those old quilting sewing circles, we had generation upon generation upon generation. And so the people that were the matriarchs of that were telling the stories and passing down the morals and the values and the stories and the history. Mm-hmm. And not only were the younger ones learning how to sew, but then you have the toddlers that were just toddling along. They're still absorbing all this.
Right.
Today, somebody lives in California, somebody lives in New York, somebody's up in Canada. Nobody all lives in the same space.
Community, right.
And so it's really important that we learn to take that time and create traditions of what's important for each family and how that's going to look for each family. I still think coming together at the end of the night is so imperative. And people will be like, but we don't have time for dinner anymore because there's baseball and soccer and ballet.
Right.
I always say, then find dessert. It just is a matter that you sit down as a group and be able to say, what happened to you today?
Yeah.
How was your day?
What was meaningful? What was
funny?
What was fun? What was funny? Yeah.
Right. 15, 20 minutes. We don't need it to be a big production.
Right.
I teach my families how to have family meetings. They're half an hour. Uh-huh. My favorite story out of all of this was I had a family trying to buy in. I said, because the object, they have to ask two questions. What went really well this week? Mm-hmm. And what didn't go so great this week? Mm-hmm. It's all the two questions. And so one of my families was taught, mom started it, dad did it the next week. Then they get down to the children once they figure out how this works. And the deal is that you can choose wherever you want to have your meeting. You can choose whatever food you want, all that kind of good stuff. And I usually think of snacks and popcorn and ice cream. And this one mom called me and she's like, okay, do we do this? And I said, what? The little 6-year-old went up to her and said, my meeting, it will be held in the park at 6:00 and we're having pizza.
Woohoo!
And she was like, do we do it? I said, do you do
of
this?
Course.
Like, how? I've never seen anything more creative out of a 6-year-old ever. And she called me and just said it was the best. They ordered pizza, went to the park. Yeah. He asked his 2 questions, got whatever answer it was. They played, and it was a great night. But that also shows you that the mom had to call and say, should I do this?
She had to ask permission.
Right.
Is it okay? Is it okay to play? Is it okay to be? Is it okay to just create?
Yeah.
Is it okay to have some fun?
Yes. We've gotten just so let's go down this road of life. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So how can, this is it. I feel like this is all part of why we're so suppressed with our emotions, because we don't allow ourselves to just kind of be and create and connect and play.
And I think that's what we're seeing right now. Uh-huh. All our play toys, so to speak, were taken away from us. Uh-huh. The beach, going out and meeting somebody in a restaurant, going to a movie, going out for a bike ride in those first few weeks. So I think that's what we're all experiencing right now is how can we get back out? How can we play? How can we connect? Mm-hmm. And I think certain families have done a superior job. You see the big tents in the living room where people are, hanging out and doing stuff. So I think people have become really creative, which is awesome. But that's the normalcy that we're all looking forward to having again. We have to play. Playing is just part of that freedom and part of the way our brains love to just, again, daydreaming. That's how our brains get freed up. Uh-huh. If we're ever stuck in a situation, go take a walk, jump on your bike. All of a sudden it goes, oh, that's what I need to do.
Yeah, when you stop thinking about it, then the answers come.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just, it's trying to get out of your mind and back into your heart. Your heart.
Yeah. But then we have to slow down long enough to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that, it's that whole sense of really reconnecting with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's your true essence. But we've spent, you know, building these lives full of busyness
Yeah,
and doing that we don't know how to reconnect. I mean, this is why I thought COVID was actually a really good thing, because it's giving people opportunities to
it is.
recognize what was I so busy doing before that's really
Correct.
not that essential.
Right, Don? And I think what I'm challenging everybody to think about is, what are you going to take with you as you move forward out of this?
Yeah.
You know, I'm having dad say, yeah, I haven't had dinner at home. Every night we had dinner. I loved it. I'm going to make sure I'm home 3 nights a week or 4 nights a
Mm,
week. I think
yeah.
we're really watching people say, I thought I had to work 12 hours a day, and man, I can knock it out in about 7 or 8
Yeah.
and still be able to deal with the kids and go have fun. So the challenge is what good things are we going to take
Yeah.
forward that we really did enjoy?
Yeah.
And did you find out that I don't like not connecting with my friends? That's equally important.
Right.
I called one of my
Or
friends.
which friends do I want to, and which friends don't I necessarily
Sure,
want to?
sure. I think you're going to see a lot of shifting in people, you know, on how we come out of this. I think it's real important for people to figure out. I'm hoping people were able to get still.
Mm-hmm.
We also saw people get still, and then the monkeys went crazy. And, you know, I never stopped working, because when those monkeys go crazy for people,
You get
they
called.
don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know, it's scary to all of a sudden have these thoughts, because they've pushed them away
Right.
by all the busyness.
Right.
And so let's take, like, I'll connect it back to the death of my dad. Had I not done my work, that trauma would have come back and revisited me,
Mm-hmm.
possibly.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to sit here and be in the silence and not be busied, that might be one of those monkeys that rises up and said, by the way, you haven't dealt with me. And are you going to look at me now?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to force you to look at me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you don't want to look at me? Well, too bad, here I am. And that's what's rising up out of a lot of people, is if they've had trauma and it's not quite done yet, it's rising up. If people had trauma and didn't know it, they don't understand what all this is.
Right.
So that's what's been also really interesting to me. Number one way to deal with any of this, do you know what it is?
Go ahead.
Yoga.
Mm-hmm.
It's the mind-body connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's the number one healer for trauma, any trauma. Because when we have a trauma, and that's probably what happened to me, we disassociate from it. Our brains
Right.
turn off. We
Right.
can't handle anymore. So we need to learn that we are in control of our body. Meditation helps us learn that we are in control of our thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the number one thing. So when people come to me, yes, I'm going to help them in a way, but I'm also recommending gratitude journals, artwork, going to
Yoga.
yoga.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people think licensed mental health therapists are going to be prescribing, what do you want me to go do?
Right.
Yeah, but it's that mind-body connection.
Yeah. It's like, I want you to get healthy in all areas of your
All
life.
areas. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I resonated with you, because I've been saying that for, 30 years. Like, I had wanted to go back and get my master's degree in exercise physiology, because
Yeah.
I was a dancer, and then I taught aerobics and, managed some health clubs. And actually, our stories are kind of similar.
I was just going to say, our separate paths are so similar. Isn't that wild? Yeah, that's crazy.
But anyways, when I sort of I got another career, I have another career, and in the midst of it, I was like, you know what? It's not just exercise that I'm concerned about. It's
No.
overall wellness. It's the emotional wellness, the spiritual wellness, the psychological wellness, the physical wellness. And so that's when I went back to school to get my counseling license.
Yeah.
And this is, have you done the Artist Way?
No.
No, that's a great higher pathway. No, the spiritual pathway to higher creativity is the tagline.
Okay.
The Artist Way has a lot of great great ideas about opening up yourself creatively and being inspired. And
Yeah.
it's just an evolution, it's just an exploration and evolution.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's like all of this stuff that we sort of put to the side because we're living our lives, under these like duties and obligations of who am I supposed to be to everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think, you're talking about, and I'm assuming that your book is a lot about really coming home to yourself.
It's interesting. It's a little bit all over the place. It talks about how we use words and how important words are. I definitely have a chapter on technology and how to connect.
Uh-huh.
It's truly about how to connect with yourself, but how to connect with others. And pretty very simple steps. We don't have to change much. If we just change the word you to an I statement,
right.
it changes everything. If I say to you tonight, you look great tonight, Dawn, you're going to automatically go, okay, did I not look so great the other night when you met me?
No, I say thank you, Patty. That's really sweet of you to say.
Yeah. And then in your brain, you're going, oh my gosh, what did I have on the other night? But if I change it and say, I love the green shirt, it brightens everything up. You're like, great, thanks. I just got it. You'll tell me a story. The word you comes with a lot. Well, first it comes with the shaming finger. I never knew this was called the shaming finger. And you need to get better grades. You have to go to school. You need to make your bed. You need to go outside. You should eat your dinner. It becomes the shaming. And we just hear the word you, and we're automatically taken back to however that was said to us, whether it's kindergarten, parents, whatever.
Right.
And we normally either cock a hip or take a small stance back. And both are defensive positions because we want to make a defense over it. And so when we learn to switch it around and start sentences with I love your shirt, it softens you in such a way that you can receive my information, whether it's good or not so good, but you're still open to it. It didn't close you off with one word. So I have a lot of tips like that throughout the book to just help people communicate better.
Yeah, I think that so many, based on, how you were raised, a lot of people grew up with hard situations in their families, challenging situations. And so I think that, resources like yours to help people learn how to live in a better, more fulfilling way, right? Little things that help you understand more about yourself and help you create more authentic and intimate connections with the people around us. Because I know you say, everybody wants to be seen, heard, and validated. Right.
Absolutely,
this is
everybody
what we
does.
all want. I feel like this is like our base need.
But through our words and with not having active listening, we aren't. If you say to somebody, what'd you hear me say? And they go, I heard you. They didn't hear a word you said.
Yeah.
If they can't even touch, I can see you're upset. That would tell me they know something's wrong.
Right.
But yeah, we all want to be seen, heard, and validated as human beings. And until we slow down enough for that, that's where we lose ourselves, but that's where others get lost as well.
Yoga. Return to the
I feel like I'm fading into the dark. Do you need me to turn on a light? I feel like, what happened here?
No, it's okay.
It's funny.
It's okay, but we're a little bit long on time, so.
Oh, okay. Are we?
Just a little.
Oh, we are, but that's okay. We knew we would do that.
We did. So I'm going to ask you my big question that I ask all my guests is, because my podcast is called Wake Up to Real Love, is how do you define real love?
Real love is knowing yourself and loving yourself first. And I think once you know that how much you love yourself, you're never alone, you're never lonely. You might want to be with other people, but I think when you can really love yourself, then you are really open to receiving other people's love and letting your girlfriends in and your children in and your husband in and loved ones and fiancés. But I think that has to start here if there's any doubt of who you are. And I think that we're always growing and working on that. I'm not saying that that's always the same, but when we really learn to forgive ourselves, to love ourselves, to be able to look in the mirror and not see hair or wrinkles or whatever, but look at that person in the mirror and say, I really love you, and mean it.
Mean it.
And mean it.
Yeah.
That's real love to me, because that means you're open to anybody else. Otherwise you have a barrier.
Right. You just speak my language, Patty.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad you invited me on. This has been awesome.
Me too. I mean, everything that you were just saying. So my mantra for the podcast is the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself.
Oh, wow. I'm going to tell you, I honestly didn't know that.
Yeah.
Synchronicity.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So thank you for seeing, hearing, and validating me.
Oh, thank you for seeing, hearing, and validating me. It's been lovely. It's been awesome. It's been fun. It was fast.
So how can people get in touch with you? How can people buy your book?
I'd love that. The book is on Amazon. The book is called Renew and Restore. I can't believe I usually have it here and I can pick it up, but it's called Renew and Restore, How to Communicate, Connect, and Celebrate to Your Best Self. It's on Amazon. You can get it Kindle or the hardback. If you want to reach me, you can find me at pattymohlercounseling.com. And if you want to email me, it's going to keep going with that same flow. It's patty@pattymohlercounseling.com. So I look forward to hearing if anybody wants to reach out. I'd love to talk to you, help any way I can.
And they can also find you at Convene.
At Convene Communities, I'm on there. I am actually, hold on to it, in the Renew and Restore community.
There you go.
So that's the brand. We're going to renew and restore ourselves this year. So yes.
And is that for all, is that for men and women and all ages?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, and I found a lot of people said to me, ooh, the book has a little bit of a woman's flavor. And I was like, oh, I'm real surprised. It was right in the very beginning. And I actually sent it to a couple men and they were like, absolutely not. Like I couldn't put the book down and I read it and that wasn't it. So yeah, I definitely think we talked about women so much. Men need to renew and restore as well.
Oh yeah.
You know, you get some really workaholics and that type of thing. So I'm not trying to dismiss them at all. And it's not geared just towards women. We as human beings need to connect to each other. And that's what I'm hoping comes out of all of this.
Yeah. We need to connect it and we need to learn how to just be.
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, be a human being, not a human doing.
Exactly. So for all of the listeners, I know that, we've shared so much wisdom and just insights into how to learn to be, right? So please subscribe to the Wake Up to Real Love podcast and share with all of your friends. Write reviews, recommendations. You can write and give me suggestions for, things that you want to hear more about, stories, you would like to tell. And then you can find me on Facebook and Instagram as The Awakening with Dawn. And I specialize in helping people overcome heartbreak. That's my gig.
I love that.
Yeah. We all experience it. And
right. Absolutely. There's another real life human condition. Absolutely.
Yeah. So this is, reconnecting with yourself and, learning how to love and accept yourself. So find me, Dawn Richard at The Awakening with Dawn. And then everybody, as I said, the most important relationship you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. It starts there. So every day, look in the mirror.
Yes.
And say, I love and accept myself here and right now.
Yes.
And every day, wake up to more and more real love. So thank you.
And gratitude.
And gratitude. Yes.
Yep.
Gratitude. So I'm going to get one of those little books and put it right by my
Absolutely.
bed.
Yeah, they're the best.
Great idea. So thank you so much for being here with me, Patty.
Thank you,
I
Dawn.
look forward to getting to know you, and let's go to Tulum.
I was just going to say that. I didn't know if we could say that on camera, but off camera, let's figure out when we're going because I want to go back.
All right. So we'll talk more. All
All
right,
right,
everybody,
sounds
we'll
good.
see you next time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.